Okay, risk mitigation, life insurance number 3. This is the third day in a row. I know you guys are getting tired about hearing about this, but I think it's extremely important. Like I always say, it doesn't make sense to invest for the long term if you're not insulated from short-term emergencies, and we've got to prepare for what could go wrong before we have the luxury of planning for what could go right. So let's have this conversation. The history of life insurance and the different types of permanent policies, right? Because we talked about term versus whole life last time. Now I want, term versus permanent. And there's a bunch of different types of permanent policies that I want to make sure you're aware of, because you may speak to somebody and they don't really know what they're talking about, or they might be trying to sell you something that they don't even fully understand. So want to make sure you guys know what's up. So in general, you've got 3, maybe 4 types of permanent policies. There's the traditional whole life, there's the universal life, there's a variable universal life, and then there's an indexed universal life, right? So the traditional whole life grows at a guaranteed fixed rate of return. If it's a mutual company, a lot of those companies, they'll pay dividends into the policy so that it has even more cash value growth. That's the oldest type of insurance, just that traditional whole life, right? So what happened was, back in the day, back in the 60s, 70s, you could go to the bank and get a 15, 16% rate of return on your safe money in savings, right? So what people did was they said, why am I going to go get 4, 5, 6% in a whole life policy when I can get 15% on my savings? I'm just going to buy term and save the rest. So what did insurance companies do? They said, well, we need to start capturing some more of these assets. So let's come up with a product that will allow people to share in that interest rate growth. So they came up with the universal life. And the universal life is essentially, it's increasing term insurance with a savings component attached. So it's a permanent policy, but the cost of the insurance will slowly increase. And back when it first started, you had insurance agents showing people, oh yeah, 15% rate of, because that's what they were paying in the universal lives back in the day. They would show them 15% on their cash value growth in perpetuity. And we all know what happened with interest rates, right? They went down. So now we're talking about getting 1% in the bank, and a lot of these universal life policies are paying 3%. So those illustrations that they were showing back in the day do not look anywhere near, right? Those universal lives, a lot of those policies blew up. They, got that lapsed and canceled because they just didn't have enough cash value in there to be able to take care of that cost of insurance that's slowly increasing, right? So then we get into the 80s and 90s, and what's happening then? The stock market is booming. You got the tech bubble that's slowly growing. It hasn't burst yet, right? So everybody's getting great returns in the stock market. So they said, forget the whole life, forget universal life. I'm going to buy term, and I'm going to invest the rest. I'm going to invest all my money, right? So what did life insurance companies said? Oh, we need to start capturing these assets. So they came out with the variable universal life. Variable meaning invested in the market. So you can have actual investments that are market driven inside of this policy. Similar, it's a universal life, so there's increasing term insurance, but that can be good because the cost of insurance is super low in the beginning, meaning you're getting a lot of cash in the policy quickly and allowing that to really build that compound interest over the long term. So that's something I own, one of those, a variable policy. And then what happened was we had the dot-com bubble. That burst. And then we had 3 negative years in the beginning of the 2000s. The 9/11 had a lot to do with that as well, but mostly that tech bubble. 3 years worth of down markets, so everybody got afraid of the market. And now insurance companies had to say, okay, how can we still capture assets without allowing people to be subject to all of that market risk? So they came out with the indexed universal life. So now you can invest in a policy that has a cap and a floor. They're investing the money for you, but if the market returns 20%, they'll give you 10, 12, there's a cap. If the market returns a negative, they'll give you 0, there's a floor, right? The problem is that if you're capping and flooring your investments, there's no way you're gonna get those really high, those nice average rates of return over the long term, because you've gotta get those 20%, 30% positive years in order to not have a nice average rate of return. So my take is if you want market exposure, just get market exposure. just protect your downside, have that fixed asset as well. So that's why I've got the variable policy that I utilize as the overall, the aggressive portion of my overall portfolio. And I have the fixed asset, the just traditional whole life that grows at a guaranteed fixed rate of return. That's acting as my buffer for the down market years, right? So the concept of infinite banking just popped in my mind, so I'm about to make another video on that. I just don't want to make this a 10-minute long video, but I hope this, quick, I keep saying quick, but these are long videos. I'm sorry, guys. I hope you can have the attention span to stick through it, because this is super, super beneficial to understand the different types of policies that are out there and, come up with what's best for you. As always, let me know if you have some questions. I'd love to go more in depth with you. And I love you all. You're perfect as you are. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And definitely look forward to seeing what value I can add moving forward.